Hello, everybody. This is Henry Schneider with the Business Performance Podcast, and it's my pleasure today to have Ellen Grace Henson as my guest. And Ellen has a long, interesting career, starting with architecture and urban planning at MIT, all the way up to business management consulting. So welcome, Ellen.
Hi, Henry. Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be here.
Okay, so first off, would you please briefly describe your company and your customers and the types of products and services you offer?
My company is Marketing Mechanics. We started out as a product management consultancy, helping our high-tech clients better understand their markets and customers so they can build better products. We started doing a lot of process work, helping our clients refine their product delivery process. And for the last several years, we've been offering what we call Alignment ThinkTanks, a series of highly adaptable, very strategic workshops where we enable the conversations clients need to have to become more customer-centric. We work with primarily high-tech companies from startup to multi-billion-dollar across multiple markets and in a lot of different technologies. So we've got a lot of depth and breadth in markets and technology.
What is the importance of quality in business performance to your clients?
So the quality that customer-centric companies are looking for is an excellence in their customer experience, in the experience that they deliver to their customers. And one of the things that happens a lot, especially in high tech, is there's a lot of focus on the user experience with the product and not finding the customer experience to deliver an excellent experience throughout the full life cycle. And performance metrics that companies track, that my clients track, include revenue, include margin, earnings per share for public companies, and productivity on their workers' parts, but also importantly, customer satisfaction and customer success. Are their customers getting what they need in order to be successful against their goals? So a lot of times for me, it's about my clients' customers and helping assure that my clients are better positioned to deliver what their customers need.
Okay, so it's a daisy chain.
Yes.
So what are one or two of the biggest myths or misconceptions out there that you encounter when you're working with your clients?
That one functional group is more important than another. I think we see this most frequently in high tech, where engineering, while certainly a core function and a core value, then other groups kind of get neglected. Customer support, people don't understand the value customer support brings. Operations is critical, sales, finance. Everybody really needs to be working together. It's not just about the engineering swim lane. Mm-hmm. Another misconception is that across these functional groups, people are so different that they can't communicate effectively and that they can't work together effectively. And that, on top of that, silos are really hard to break down. Yeah. What I've discovered is that employees are motivated to understand the context within which they work, to understand the goals, and to work more effectively in their jobs, which oftentimes means collaborating more effectively. Mm. So tapping into that nascent motivation is really important to full business success.
Yeah, I know. From my experience, I think the biggest gap I've ever encountered is between sales and marketing and product development. They don't talk to each other.
Stories about that.
Yeah.
But it's also, I also want to say that there's oftentimes a big gap between the value proposition for product and the value proposition for customer support. A lot of companies look at customer support as a cost center, and they incent their people to get off the phone or get the customer out of the queue, as opposed to incenting them to really solve the customer's problem, no matter how much time it takes.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of that that's very valuable. Plus, it can be a profit center too.
That's what I'm saying. Customer support needs to be considered a value center, and the relationship between that value and revenue needs to be clear.
Okay. So when you work with your clients, what's the biggest challenge that they're facing with performance? Are they focusing on just on financials, or are they looking at other things, or what?
Oftentimes, I do see the metrics is using, or using as part of their vision or goals, are not metrics that the employees can relate to their day-to-day. So if you say, for example, we want to increase by 20%, and everybody's responsible to help us increase revenue by 20%. Does the operations team see a straight line between what they do, revenue generation? Customer support see a straight line in what they do? Does finance see a straight line? It's really important to help people understand tricks that people can relate to, that they can relate there, and in parallel, being able to relate work to the value that the company delivers.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I know years ago I worked for a large corporation, and one of the goals was improve ROI, and they flooded down to our office, and everybody's scratching their head. What does that mean? So you know what they did? They cut out the coffee and donuts at meetings in order to improve ROI.
There you go.
And all that did was make everybody mad.
That's exactly right. Or I worked with a company some time ago where they decided they needed to increase their support revenue. And so what was, they doubled their support costs. And what they saw, and they had support as a subscription service, and what they saw was a huge drop in people re-upping on the subscription. Mm. And so we came in and did some work for them. This was before Marketing Mechanics. I was working with another consultant. We came in and did some work for them to really help understand what aspects of support their customers valued, and what was the cost of delivery to the company for that type of support. And then we helped them come up with bundles based on customer utility and cost of delivery. And once they released these new bundles, they saw support revenues start to climb rapidly. Yeah. So it's very, very important that you make any kind of business decisions based on an understanding of what your customers need, want, and are willing to pay for. Yeah. And not, we need to make twice the revenue, double the price.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's getting into what Eric Ries calls the Vanity Metrics, where everybody feels good about it, but they don't give any insight at all what's going on in the company.
That's an excellent point. Was it Jeffrey Moore who said, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it?
Yeah.
So I might be misattributing that. Regardless, I would add to that, and if it's not relevant to your customers and your employees, relevant at all.
Yeah. So we were talking before we got started about your background, and so could you just kind of tell everybody how you went from being an architect and urban planning into a management consultant and dealing with product development?
Sure, absolutely. So I studied at MIT as an undergraduate. I studied architecture and urban planning. And during the course of my studies, I started doing some research at what was then called the Architecture Machine Group. And that was the group that evolved into the Media Lab. And the research that I was doing, I was enthralled. I got very, very interested in computers and the capabilities of computers and how they can help us unleash our creativity. So I decided I was going to start my career as a software developer and technical manager. So that's how I started. I started doing debugging, structural engineering analysis software, developing 3D CAD software. And at some point I decided, while I loved writing code and I loved engineering, I wanted to know problems. I wanted to expand my scope. So when I looked around to see what type of jobs would help me understand the company better, I decided on product management. Product management at its best helps bring the whole company a full understanding of the customer and helps everybody align on delivering value to that customer. I started consulting in product management in the early 2000s, wrote a lot of requirements documents, did some, and continue to do that work, and continue to do some like high-level solutions architecture, helping my clients better understand their markets and customers so they can build better products. But I realized that no matter how many requirements documents I wrote, no matter how much customer validation work I did, my clients and a lot of companies were still going to be less successful than possible because they weren't looking at the big picture. They weren't looking at the full set of values or the full set of value that their customers need. So that's when I invented the Wheel of Value and my Alignment ThinkTanks. The Wheel of Value is a very simple concept. It's a circle with the customer in the middle, and all the functional groups, including partners, are wedges on the wheel. So that's to illustrate that everybody's focused on the customer. And then the think tanks are highly adaptable workshops that help cross-functional teams develop a shared understanding of the customer, look at how they all participate in delivering value throughout the full customer life cycle, and then identify refinements to their processes so that they can be more effective long-term.
Great. So can you share a story where you've recently helped somebody to overcome obstacles and succeed?
I had a client where you mentioned earlier that sometimes you see a gap between sales, marketing, and product. Mm-hmm. Well, with this particular client, the sales team was selling something very different than what the product team was building. And that is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, definitely.
Because no matter how awesome that product turned out to be, the idea that customer expectations were set so differently, and customers would take receipt of this product and go, oh my God, this is not what I paid for. What is this? Mm-hmm. So that was immediately set up for failure. So we did a lot of internal conversations and process work to help everybody understand that it's important not just to get feedback from other internal teams or even the customer at the beginning of your process, of your, the concept phase of a product, but it's important to continually loop back, update people to any changes in direction, get their feedback on refinements, etc. So we implemented some very important process changes with that client. And frankly, those process changes were not heavyweight, they were not onerous, and they did help the client in the future avoid those types of disaster scenarios.
So if you were to distill this down into a little moral, what would be the moral of the story?
It starts with a conversation and it continues with regular conversations to make sure that everybody is staying in alignment.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a similar experience many years ago where the salesman would sell anything just to close the deal, and they come back and say, here, I need this function in there, and the developers would scream and shout. And what I did is I just brought everybody into the room and said, okay, let's just work through the process. And then they realized, now I know why you can't do what I want.
That's an excellent point that you're making. And again, part of what I work to do is help team members understand what other functional groups are responsible for, the role they play in delivering value, so they can see that everybody's important and everybody needs to be included in some of these key decision points. Mm-hmm. Not just from deciding or being informed, but also contributing. We talked earlier about customer support. Customer support has an enormous amount of customer knowledge. Mm-hmm. And if you're not including them in the beginning of the conversation, the same with sales. Sales has a lot of customer knowledge. Operations has a lot of knowledge about what it takes to deliver, performance that customers require. All those conversations should be part of your early concept and validating with those different perspectives throughout the delivery process.
Yeah, definitely. Otherwise, you can build the most perfect product that doesn't meet anybody's needs.
That, or when it breaks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Customers can't get help. Yeah.
Okay, so how about you were telling me you recently went through and rewrote your positioning statement and you reflected all the way back to you as a preteen. So could you share that story with us?
Sure. Okay. So I realized that since my services have evolved, I needed to evolve my positioning statement. And while I used to talk about how I help customers, my clients, how I help my clients better understand their markets and customers, now I've repositioned to say I help business leaders and teams engage in strategic conversations regarding what's at the core of their company, their customers.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is about helping teams having those conversations, the context, the value, the who the customer is conversations that we referred to earlier. And after I developed that positioning statement, I had an insight that I have been concerned about having meaningful and substantial conversations since my preteen years. There was some challenges in my family environment around the time when I was 11 or 12, and there wasn't any conversation about them, and demanding that we have family meetings, that we talk about what's going on. I wanted to understand and I realized throughout my life and throughout my career is I want to understand the context within which I'm working. So I expect that other people want those same things. And it was very interesting to me to have the insight that, this new set of services that I'm offering relate back to that spark that started in my preteens.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing when you reflect and how you can trace things way back in time.
Yes, yes.
So what does success look like for Ellen Grace Henson?
Well, success looks like having my clients with employees who are more engaged and satisfied in their work, where the whole company's aligned on delivering value to the customer, and the customer is experiencing success and satisfaction as well. I would like to have that type of impact on as many companies and individuals as possible. To me, it's a way to make everyone's work life more satisfying, more gratifying, and no doubt that would have ripple effects in their larger life as well.
Okay. All right. So when customers are looking for help, not necessarily coming to you, but just they realize that they're outside of the denial stage. They moved on from that and they realize, I need some help. What should they be asking when they consider the right types of products or services that they need?
Well, Henry, that depends on the type of problems they're having, the type of challenges they're having. One of the things I always, in my first conversations with potential clients, I always try to help them understand whether the pain point they're feeling at that time, is that a symptom or is that a root cause? And so really understanding the difference between symptoms and root causes will help you understand the scope of the challenge and help you understand the type of skill set you need from an outside consultant to address that challenge.
Okay, so now I imagine you must have a lot of competition that are competing for the same group of people. So what questions should your potential clients be asking when they decide, should they go with you or go with company XYZ?
Partially it's about approach. Some of the things I read from other people who arguably are in my space, it gets very academic, and it doesn't often refer really to the people. So, there's a lot of engagement work being done, and a lot of it is very good work. But what I see for a lot of that type of work, engagement, because I talk a lot about engagement, so I see that stops kind of at the management level, and it doesn't talk about how this new way of approaching work will impact people's day-to-day tasks. And the way I approach this is it takes it from very high level for everybody down into their day-to-day task. So not just what is the shared vision or the shared view of the customer? What is your perspective? What is my perspective? And how do we combine those into a shared view? But now that we have a more clarity around who the customer is, what does that mean in how I conduct myself day to day? So that's a big difference that I believe I bring.
Okay. Now you shared with me a paper where you're talking about engagement and alignment, and it's a fascinating read. So could you kind of just share with our viewers what is the importance of engagement and alignment?
There's been a lot of research done over the last 10 to 15 years around what's called employee engagement. It can be defined as the enthusiasm and dedication people bring to their work. Very simple definition. And what a lot of these studies have found is that there's a very low level of employee engagement. I think it's Gallup, in some research they did in 2013, suggested that on average, only 13% of employees in the United States are fully engaged with their work. And that has a huge impact on business performance.
Oh, definitely.
High engagement, companies that have high engagement in their employees, they see 20% or more difference in revenues than companies with low engagement. Companies with low engagement see a lot more employee churn. They see a lot more theft and a lot of negative behaviors on the part of their employees. So engagement or lack of engagement can really impact both top line and bottom line results. Now, alignment is very important as well. And I don't like to separate the two, frankly, because you can have employees that feel good about coming to work. They feel good about the people that they're working with, which are important aspects of engagement. They can even feel appreciated for the work they're doing. But if they don't have the same set of goals as the people across the aisle or the people in the other building, if they're not working on common goals, they might all be running in different directions. And that's another way to potentially dilute business performance. So when employees can be both aligned and engaged, you get some pretty awesome multiplying effects in terms of business performance.
Yeah, and part of that is is trying to, you got to measure that correctly too, and that's somewhat of a challenge because you got to see how all that stuff flows through the system, so you can ensure that the alignment and the engagement is there. So, one other question. You've been in business for a while, you've had lots of experience. So, reflecting on where you are today, if you had to start all over from scratch, what would you do differently, and what would you do to keep as a good practice?
Well, personally, for my business, I probably would have gotten some sales training sooner. I think there's a challenge where when somebody's very passionate about what they do, it should be obvious to everybody else why this is worth doing. And so sometimes I have to remember not just to talk about how awesome this is, but to listen to what people need and to assure that what I offer is aligned with what they need and that I can truly deliver value. And that happens more through listening than talking. And so that, I would have been better at that sooner in my consulting and in my work career, maybe even in my life. Also, I would have paid more attention to managing the administrative side of my business. I probably would have outsourced the administrative side of my business much sooner. It's very challenging to both, to be developing your practice, reaching out to prospects and clients, and keeping track of cash flow, making sure the taxes get paid, all those things. That's a lot for one person to do, and it doesn't necessarily resonate with the skills and the talents, that not all of that will resonate with the skills and the talents that I have. So, either hiring somebody on a part-time basis or outsourcing it in a variety of different ways, I would have been more effective earlier in my practice.
Definitely, yeah, very good. So we could go on and on and on, but we're running out of time here, and I want to honor your time as well. So how can people get in touch with you to learn more about your services and what you do?
One way, of course, is to look me up on LinkedIn. There's nobody else with my name on LinkedIn. I use 3 names: Ellen Grace Henson, Henson. My email address is egh, as in Ellen Grace Henson, egh at mktgmech.com. So egh at Marketing Mechanics, mech.com.
Okay, great. Ellen, you're a fantastic storyteller. I really enjoyed listening to you today and talk about your wheel of value and just conversations and how important it is to really break down these barriers. And I'm sure our viewers will find this just as fascinating. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Henry, for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed speaking with you, and it's great to be able to reach a new audience.
Okay.